Let's talk supply chain. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Talk Supply Chain. As always, we're starting with a question. So today's guests are going to be talking all about the rising problem of cargo theft. So do you know how much time it takes for thieves to steal a full truckload of cargo? Well, I have no idea. I think it's probably not very long, but what do you think? And let me know your guesses over on social. Keep listening because I'll let you know at the end of the show. So today I'm joined by a company that believes excellence in container drayage starts with the right software. They're part of the leading cloud-based supply chain software product that is a longtime collaborator of ours. But who are they? Well, CargoWise Landside. CargoWise Landside's suite of logistics solutions are built to power the movement of containers by road, rail, and container exchange. Ushering in a new era of container efficiency, Landside is designed to streamline your drayage operations from order intake to billing for maximum efficiency and success, all on one powerful platform. And today we have two guests for you. We've got Bobby Strenk, Senior Director of Marketplace at SecurSpace, part of WiseTech Global. He has a deep industry knowledge and is an expert in yard storage utilization trends, market dynamics, and stakeholder relationships. And Ron Greene, EVP of Risk and Intelligence at Overhaul, brings over 25 years of experience and combines his technical knowledge with practical expertise to tackle the complexities of supply chain security. Now, today we're going to be talking all about the huge issue of cargo theft. We'll be shining a light on the latest theft trends and tactics and what we can expect in the future. We'll be exploring what shippers can do to mitigate risk and how storage and parking providers can boost security. And we'll be sharing how SecurSpace and Overhaul can help keep your shipments safe. Well, welcome to the show, Bobby and Ron.
How you doing, Sarah? Great to see you, as always.
Hi, Sarah. Great to be here. Thank you.
Yes, I'm excited to have you both here. Now, we had Tom Burke from CargoWise Landside on the show back in December. Last month, Tom and I were joined by Dennis Lane and Jessica Whitehouse for a webinar as well. And I have to say, I am really enjoying these conversations, right? They're really getting me thinking, and I can't wait to carry that on with both of you today and have Overhaul join the party. So let's start with some introductions. Bobby, can you let us know who you are, what you do? Give us a reminder of CargoWise Landside as well. We'll start there.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Bobby Strenk. I am the Senior Director of Marketplace for SecurSpace. SecurSpace is a product offering within CargoWise Landside. Just to give you a brief summary, SecurSpace is a two-sided marketplace. So we connect buyers who are typically motor carriers, 3PL shippers, really anyone in need of secure container, trailer, and truck parking and storage with our vast and diverse network of suppliers across the country. And our suppliers are anyone who really has underutilized industrial outdoor storage that they're looking to monetize and manage using SecurSpace.
Yeah, and this is your second time on the show, so welcome back.
I appreciate you for having me back.
All right, Ron, why don't you tell us who you are and give us an overview of Overhaul and what you do as well.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. So Ron Greene, EVP of Overhaul. As you mentioned, I've been in the supply chain security / cargo theft risk mitigation most of my career. I focus on helping companies build security programs. I run a couple divisions within Overhaul, including our intelligence group, which collects and disseminates a lot of data around cargo theft and associated risks. I also run our response operations group, think law enforcement engagement when a theft happens and how to respond to that. And we do have an insurance arm, which I also head up within Overhaul.
Great. And Overhaul's been on the show as well previous to this. And so I want to say welcome back. But I also think after all of that, you should be a division of the FBI.
No, I guess, interact with a lot of three-letter agencies on certain occasions and have a lot of former law enforcement on our staff that are the key to success when it comes to recoveries and interacting with, authorities around the world.
Yeah. And this is a really big topic. It's becoming a lot more top of mind for a lot of folks. And so today we're talking about cargo theft. So firstly, I want to sort of go into what is cargo theft? Are there different types? And are there any trends to look out for when it comes to what is being stolen, how it's being stolen? Ron, I'm going to turn that over to you if you can give us an idea.
I've been studying cargo theft most of my career. That's how I got my start in this space, was an analyst building risk models around, cargo theft trends and, how do you prevent it? How do you invest in solutions and tools, and what's the ROI associated with those solutions? Cargo theft is just what it says, stealing cargo. It could be from a truck, from a train, from an airport, from a warehouse, anywhere in the world where cargo sits or moves, cargo theft happens. As we sit here in the first part of 2025, there's a whole new world around cargo theft. 3.5 years into a significant spike in cargo theft. This is not just in the US, we're seeing it globally. The US takes the lead in terms of how much cargo theft has increased over the past couple of years. There's been a rash of increase in expanded techniques, or what we call MOs, modus operandi. There's been, a lot of criminal organizations that historically weren't in the cargo theft space have kind of jumped in with both feet. And there's a lot of reasons for that. We can talk about that at some point in the podcast, but, we study this, we analyze it, and we are a leading expert in this space and advise some of the biggest companies in the world around what should they be doing to help mitigate this problem.
Yeah, well, I think Canada might be up there. I recently read a story about some gold bars that went missing from an aircraft. So I think it was like $20 million in value.
Canada has some hotspots. They are one of the hotspots in North America, certain parts of Canada, primarily the GTA area. We have a lot of activity up there with our organization and have a lot of clients up there as well.
Interesting. So how big of a problem is this? I just talked about value, right? I think Canada is up there just because of the pure value of that one that happened here. I think it was last year or the year before. And I know it's rising. So do you have any data on that growth? What does that mean going forward? What can we continue to expect?
One of the industry challenges is really putting data to this problem. Yes, we have some good data. Yes, we have some directionally correct data. But do we have precise data? The answer is no. Collecting and analyzing cargo theft data, it has been the bane of with a level of accuracy that people can kind of jump on board with, has been a thorn in the side of the industry for a long time. Governments around the world, including the US, including Canada, collect that data at the law enforcement agency level is kind of haphazard, if you will. Some agencies do it pretty well, others don't do it at all. We track and monitor this with the data we can collect on a monthly basis. And we're, in the last couple of years, our number is, if you took, from where it was historically, kind of the run rate, dating back to 2018, 2019, maybe even 2020, to where it is today, we're seeing a 3x increase.
Wow.
In cargo theft rates. And that is I think that's a directionally correct number. There are, organizations that put up higher numbers than that. But I think if I had to kind of put a stake in the ground, I would put 3x over historical norms in the US and Canada.
Well, and I would also say, this is not something that people want to potentially advertise, right? It's kind of like a cybersecurity attack or a cyber attack. Mm-hmm. Nobody really wants to talk about it. I think people are talking about it more in closed door sessions, but this isn't necessarily, that's why maybe you're limited in data as well. Maybe they do need to report it, but they really don't want to be talking about it publicly.
Correct. You're exactly right. In some cases, it's not even reported to the police. They just kind of chalk it up as the cost of doing business. They don't know how to file a police report. They don't know where it was stolen. Mm. So actually getting a police report filed sometimes is a challenge. And a lot of companies will say, all right, I'll pay the claim, or I'll make my customer whole, or cover the loss in many different ways just to get it off their desk and move on with their business.
I was just saying, you don't want to paint a target on your own back, right? Mm-hmm. If you show the size of the market, you don't want that to be a catalyst for more entrants.
That is such a good point too. You don't want them to see you are a good target for that. Now, I'm going to kind of ask you to come out with a crystal ball. What can we expect, do you think, in the future? Is it going to just increase and keep going up? And are there new tactics that criminals are using all the time?
We do not foresee this slowing down. The cargo thieves are making too much money, but that's the bottom line. If you boil that down to why, if you date back, let's just say 10 years ago, cargo theft was an issue. And cargo thieves were making somewhere in the range of 30 to maybe 40 cents on the dollar for every unit stolen. So you steal a computer. As a thief, could probably sell that for 30 to 40 cents on the retail valuation of that computer. Today, they're getting 80 to 90 cents on the dollar for that product. So their profit margin has doubled or maybe even tripled. And it's just too profitable, and there's very little, risk involved. The risk of being arrested and put away is fairly low in most parts of the world, or parts of the North America, I should say. And there's just too much money being made, and it's going to take a collaborative industry plus government, plus associations kind of joining forces to help curb this issue.
Yeah, we need to collaborate and look out for each other, I think is what you're trying to say. So that level of theft, right? How does that translate to bottom line numbers for already stretched businesses? I mean, that can be really scary, especially from where we were in 2024, looking at 2025. Let's talk about what shippers can do, how they can mitigate freight theft and risk. And let's talk about it from a people perspective first, because we kind of have to talk about it from the human perspective, working with drivers, working with carriers. Those are the ones that are taking ultimately a lot of risk sometimes for the theft that is happening. So what can be done with this? Bobby, I want to start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're talking with our shipper clients every single day, really just to understand what are they doing from a parking and storage perspective to help mitigate the risk of cargo theft. So we're seeing far more stringent security requirements, and this is really forcing the carriers to react, especially when it comes to augmenting their yard operations, and then when they're actually forced to go procure outside parking and storage. What do they really need to look for? What boxes do they need to check before they actually store their clients' equipment? In this trend, again, it's not transitory. This is going to be sustaining. So I'll pass it off to Ron from here.
It's not a one size fits all problem. Every supply chain has unique aspects. Every supply chain has similar aspects. It's really applying layers of security, where threats are present. Parking is a good idea. It's only one layer in the overall security plan. If you look around the world, secured parking is fairly prevalent in parts of Europe, most of Europe. There's no place else in the world that it's prevalent. The U.S. is few and far between secured parking areas, but Overhaul takes the approach that a layered security plan is what has to happen, and you monitor compliance to that layered security plan. This is what Overhaul does. We monitor logistics movements. Are they following the rules? Are they not? And giving carriers, logistics providers, any stakeholder who is responsible for moving that cargo a report card every month. How is your organization doing from a security standpoint? And we have customers in our that don't lose cargo. We've been working with them for many, many years, and they haven't had a single theft. We have customers that come to us saying, "I'm bleeding. I'm having a theft every couple of weeks."
Right.
And the difference is the customers that don't have theft have a security plan in place. They monitor compliance to that security plan, and anybody who's not jumping on board with the security plan, they may not be part of that logistics operation anymore. They may get moved out for a different supplier.
Right.
And it's, security through compliance is a solid strategy that works across multiple disciplines and industries. And that's how Overhaul really, focuses on our solution in mitigating the theft.
So when you say security and compliance, what do you mean by that? Are we looking at vetting carriers a little bit differently? Are you looking at route planning? Are you looking at education? How important are those components?
All the above and then some.
Okay.
I'll give you a simple example. Let's say a company requires drivers to park in one of Robert's spaces when they move across this lane. Say they move 500 trucks across that lane in a given month. How many drivers adhere to that requirement? How many don't? You're going to get a you may have 50% compliance. You may have 80% compliance. Our goal would be to spell out and point out, here's your monthly report card. This month you had a 50% compliance rate of drivers using that parking area. Let's work to get to 70% next month and communicate, put some further instructions and training in place, and let's come back in a month and what's our report card look like? The goal and that's just one simple example. There's a lot of different layers to security to include, route planning. There's, no stop areas, hot zones, door open alerts, light alerts. There's a litany of things that we monitor compliance towards. But our goal is to get our customers above a 94% compliance rate month over month. And if we can do that, that's just kind of fall off a cliff.
That's a big number. I mean, 94%, I think everybody's going to want that level of compliance, especially when we're talking about capital that is so intense within the products that are on those trucks, on those trains, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. No, agreed. We have customers month over month are 99.9% compliant.
Wow.
They never have a loss.
Wow.
We have customers that are 40% compliant and they are still losing freight. And we're trying to educate and train and get their compliance numbers higher where those losses start to dry up.
About route planning, can I make a comment about if there's an accident and they have to go off route? Like, if they go off route, is that considered compliant or not? Like, does that make any difference, or can I ask that question?
That specific example, I would say no. It was a logical deviation. There was a reason for it. We monitor. Are they making progress towards the destination? Is our standard protocol. Or are they going the wrong way? Yeah.
Ron, what if because there is a scarcity of secure yards, especially on long haul routes, what if a driver does need to deviate into a hot zone in order to find parking and storage to prevent them from parking on the side of an expressway? Because when the hours of service terminate, they need to get off the road in order to stay compliant with that law.
100%. There's hours of service is one constraint. The lack of secured parking is another constraint. Even in some parts of the country, parking is a constraint.
Yes.
It's a matter of educating. Does that driver know he's entering a hot zone? Can we, in our program, if a driver enters a hot zone, we send a text message that you're entering a hot zone. You're aware of your surroundings, park in a secure area, give them a few more tips to ensure the product remains safe. And that all these little things help. There's not one perfect silver bullet that is going to solve all the problems. It's, again, back to layers of security that is a strategy that wins.
So I want to talk about the physical side, right? I'm thinking technology, security. What can shippers do in that area to help mitigate risk and prevent theft? Now, you've been talking about hot zones. I've heard about red zones. Are they the same thing? Are they different? Talk to us a little bit about technology, security, and what all these words mean.
Yeah, sure. The best in class kind of use of technology today is monitoring in-transit cargo, where you have a data point coming live off that cargo into a platform where the platform can ingest that data, determine if things are going right or something's going wrong. And that can generate different alerts and escalations to include door open alerts, to include unauthorized stops, route deviations. We use light on occasion, even also down to unauthorized carriers. One of the things that is very prevalent, that is brand new to the North American market, is fraudulent actors that have started trucking companies. Ooh. And that has driven a significant part of the increase in theft, where historically driver theft or carrier involved theft was few and far between. Yes, it happened, but it wasn't the norm. Today, it's the norm. Today, it accounts for about 30 to 40% of cargo theft is theft by fraud, and that takes on many different forms.
Amazing.
The things you were mentioning, red zone is a term I think we coined 20 some years ago. And I think it came off the NFL. If the red zone in the NFL, we kind of copied their red zone nomenclature. But red zone is typically 200 miles from the point of origin. Statistically, that is where the majority of theft occurs. And if we can get drivers to not stop for the first 200 miles, which is usually 4 hours, we can mitigate theft by typically 70 to 80%. And one tactic will mitigate theft. Now it's not a perfect, again, not a silver bullet, right, but all these little things add up. That is the definition of a red zone. 200 miles from origin is the location where the majority of theft occurs.
Okay. Bobby, I want to bring you into this side, talking about technology, talking about security, the physical side. What do you think? What can we do to mitigate the risk and prevent theft?
Well, it certainly comes down to what I would say is three main buckets. It's having secure infrastructure. You need to ensure that you have rigorous operations at those parking and storage facilities. And then you're also providing better visibility to the actual shippers and motor carriers themselves. So Ron brought up a great point within the red zone. And frankly, that's where the highest density of industrial outdoor storage facilities are, near major marine and inland port markets. So shippers are just asking for better security from their carriers, 3PLs, and by extension, industrial outdoor storage operator partners.
Yeah, and so they should, right? I mean, like I said earlier, the capital that's involved with the products that are on that particular container, truck, rail, is a lot, and capital costs a lot right now. Right. And so you really you need to be thinking about these things, because you really want to be able to prevent theft for a variety of different reasons. One of those being ultimately, bottom line, not only for you, but also your customers, whose product it is, and all of that kind of stuff. All right. So can you dive a little bit deeper for us into why secure parking and storage is so important, right? And for organizations looking into this, what should they be looking for in a secure yard? Because I'm sure you have conversations, you think you're asking the right questions, you get into a partnership, and then you forgot something.
Yeah.
So talk to us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the key word is secure. Over the last several years, especially during the influx of imports that was hitting the United States, there was a bulk amount of new industrial outdoor storage product that hit the market. However, much of it was not secure. And during those times, there was great need to move containers, move equipment off ports, get it into external drop yards. So from an operator's perspective, an industrial outdoor storage operator owner, there wasn't necessarily a desire to invest capital into beefing up their security or operational processes. Customers had a need for parking and storage, and they were able to get that business pretty easily. Now that we're operating in more of a normalized demand environment, shippers are able to be more selective in the types of yard they're choosing, and in an effort, at least one component, to mitigate cargo theft. Again, they're just requiring higher quality Class A secure yards. So what does that exactly look like? I think that one thing Ron and I agree on is the North Star is really the TAPA requirements for yards, right? It's an extremely detailed set of parameters, both infrastructure, operation, and reporting wise, that provides, number one, shippers with a template of what they should be looking for when they do need to obtain parking and storage, in addition to motor carriers. And then it also helps the facility operators themselves. What do I need to do to make my facility better? What is my competitive advantage? And frankly, and I'll expound more about this later, I think that really gets down to providing best-in-class security, rigorous operations, and reporting. So, one example of infrastructure, it's just basic perimeter fencing, lights, CCTV, and operational protocols really entails like the parking schematic. How are containers, trailers organized and situated within a facility? Is there staff security? If there is staff security, what are they actually doing while on the yard? And gate management processes and reporting. It's all about visibility. And we're even seeing some yards provide like stall or parking spot level visibility where cargo is being stored.
I think that's all great information. When you said TAPA, is there a place that people can go to get that information?
Yes, it's directly on the website.
Okay.
Ron,
awesome.
And Ron, can you speak upon that more? The TAPA requirements?
Yeah, sure. So I've been involved with TAPA for a long time. They first started with what you call a warehouse security, guideline or certification. And then they moved into parking areas. I think that started over in Europe and is now moving over into North America. And then they also have They have a broker security certification, and I think a transportation, trucking provider certification. So they're kind of all things security standard, is kind of that organization. And their parking standards are considered kind of the gold standard. And there's different levels. There's, forget if it's A, B, or C, or I think it's A, B, and C, TAPA B, TAPA C. So they have different levels. Companies kind of adhere to. A is kind of top of the chart. B is a step lower, and C is a step lower. But they are designed by security professionals, and these committees that design these standards they nitpick them to death, down to the wording and how it's worded, and it's quite an ordeal. But they are the gold standard for standards in the supply chain and logistics industries.
Awesome. I think that's a really great resource. And you talked about staffing, Bobby, right? And I think one of the things that we should probably just mention there as well is to ask that provider or that partner how they vet their staff, right? Because you want to.
That's a great point.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say that's a great point. You have to consider all different elements, and that does include who is actually staffing the yard, how well is their training, and so forth.
Great questions to think about when you're looking at working with outside providers. Okay, so from the storage provider's perspective, right, what can they do better to secure their yards? I mean, if organizations are going to be looking at this, they're going to be going against the TAPA recommendations, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, they're going to be under more scrutiny. They're going to get more questions, just like the ones that we're coming up with today. So what can they do to better secure their yards, Bobby?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Number one, and you all alluded to it yourself, is perform a gap analysis. What are you doing at your facility? What is your infrastructure, and how does it compare to the gold standard, so to speak? So I really think of it as, we have TAPA A, TAPA B, TAPA C, or you could also say it's good, better, best, right? Not every yard needs to be Fort Knox, right? So good could be perimeter fencing, having lights and CCTV. Better is really the infrastructure of good coupled with staff security, and at least having some elementary level of driver credential validation and inventory reporting to the tenants. And then best, which what I'm really calling next generation industrial outdoor storage. And this is the type of parking and storage product that shippers, motor carriers really need to, book and leverage themselves, just because it does mitigate or help mitigate cargo theft. It's the aforementioned attributes of good and better, but it's far more robust and sophisticated. So, just a few examples. You have the perimeter fencing, but you could also have an electric fence that will notify security when there is a breach. There's some extremely powerful CCTV where you can detect and see the container number from hundreds of yards away. And for operational processes, we have many yards who list on SecurSpace who not only have 2 gate clerks checking drivers' credentials and reporting on what's coming in and what's going out, but also roaming security around the yard 24/7. Again, just more eyes to ensure that any potential criminals can be stopped before they actually get their hands on the freight. And I mentioned this earlier, but when it comes to reporting, number one, it's expected to have interchange data, what's coming in, what's coming out, who brought it in. That can include release numbers, also tracking equipment stall by stall or parking spot by parking spot. And then also, reporting is only as good as your ability to access it and analyze it. So having some type of cloud-based kind of tip of the fingers solution where you're able to consume this data And maybe it's also some type of EDI or API integration where the motor carrier or shipper can consume these events and analyze it within their dashboard of choice.
I'm almost thinking like a nanny cam or like a nanny cam or, a way for you to log in to see the cameras that are on site so you can check in on your baby.
I have had many conversations and meetings with yard operators who do check their phone periodically through our conversation. And I've seen the quality of the picture or the nanny cam, yard cam, and it's truly remarkable.
Amazing. I was just sort of, throwing it out there as maybe next steps for somebody, but all right. So what can shippers and their 3PL partners and carriers do to better secure their freight? Firstly, let's talk about this from an in-transit perspective. What can be done when freight is on the move? Ron, I'm going to start with you. Then we'll go to Bobby.
Sure. I'm going to boil it down to fairly, basic tactics. Number one, know who's moving your freight and how it's being moved. You'd be surprised how many shippers, even how many logistics providers aren't fully aware of those details.
Mm-hmm.
That's number one. Number two, know the threat environment. What kind of criminal, tactics are being used on that specific, geographical region or lane or area. Those two things right there are the foundation of building a security plan that's effective. From there, then you can get into security countermeasures, security process and procedures to mitigate against those threats. And this is what Overhaul does on a daily basis is, monitors freight in transit. If you want to boil it down to a couple of things that we do very well, it's monitoring freight in transit and preventing theft.
Mm-hmm.
If we see a truck going into a hot zone, if we see a door open alert that's not supposed to, if we see a driver that's unauthorized, for a load, we can escalate and get the people who can action that aware and allow those people to take action, or if there is a theft, work to get a recovery through our response operations. Program.
Is there an education and training component for drivers? Because, and I'll, give a different example. If somebody is stealing something from a store, let's say, a lot of the staff has been trained to ask them to give it back and ask them to give it back, but not to get into any sort of altercation or like follow them or anything like that. Where does that come into play when, cargo's in transit? Because ultimately they're the ones that are moving the goods.
Yeah. If I compare it to the safety culture that was kind of, really pushed hard the last, 10, 12, maybe more than that years, trucking companies found, that, accidents and lawsuits are driving insurance rates up. There's lawsuits that are drilling into their safety practices within their organization. And the way to mitigate against that is really building a rock solid safety culture within your organization, which is training, which is tools, which is monitoring, which is using data where applicable. There's a long list of things that are used to build a safety culture. The industry has to do the same thing for security, and build a security culture within your organization, which involves training, which involves understanding risks and threats, and everybody from all the entire organization from top to the bottom needs to adhere to a security culture. If something doesn't look right, ask a question. If there's something that, potentially going wrong, drill in and figure it out versus, it's probably just, an exception to the rule.
Mm-hmm.
But building a safety culture is what the industry has to do to help mitigate this problem.
So let's talk about freight at rest then, because I think that's one of the places where there's the most risk, or what we've talked about so far. So what can be done to secure freight at rest, right? I'm guessing rest is in a parking lot or,
or a truck stop or a side of the
do
road.
they do a truck stop, or are they asked to go and find a secure parking lot? I guess, yeah. Like, what is freight at rest? Where could that be? And what's the action plan for that? Ron?
Yeah. So freight at rest means it's not moving, and you could probably say 99.99% of theft in North America happens when freight is at rest.
Okay.
There's been a few, kind of bubbles up of, some in-transit theft activity, meaning stealing while the truck is moving. Has that been confirmed? No. Does it happen in Europe? Yes. But freight at rest means that there is the probability that something bad could happen. Mm-hmm. And, if you're moving a high value load, you keep it moving. Use team drivers, so you're not sitting for the DOT required rest hours, in a truck stop somewhere, or your driver's not having to go out of his way to find a secure yard.
Right.
That's been a long kind of mantra of the industry is if you can keep freight moving, your risk is going to be declined.
Yeah, and plan those trucking routes for the drivers so they know where those secure parking lots are, I would assume. Right, Bobby?
Yeah, absolutely. But, even still, there is a lack of available, fully secure industrial outdoor storage product on a lot of these long haul routes. So it does take an intricate level of planning, to ensure that your driver, when they do have to stop, is able to park at a facility that really meets the organizations or the TAPA requirements. So, with that being said, there's a real opportunity for industrial outdoor storage investors to develop new product that, again, really meets that gold standard. Or, there's ample industrial real estate that can be really transformed into, Class A parking for our drivers. Because at the end of the day, cargo theft is extremely important. It does impact the bottom line, but we also have to consider the safety of our drivers. So whether they're parked on the side of a road or an expressway, ramp, exit, or a truck stop, the cargo is at risk, but they're also at risk as well. Mm-hmm. At least that's from the parking component. And then, there's significant risks that also need to be considered for the storage when a container trailer is set to be dwelling in a yard for an extended period of time.
Yeah. And I think even the way you park the trailer.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a trailer container, it has doors in the back. If you're able to park them together, it's really hard to get into, the container trailer without cutting a hole in it. So from the schematic to making it hard to permeate a barrier, whether that barrier be physical or through some type of gate that's staffed by, humans validating drivers and so forth. Mm-hmm. And it all. Go
ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say it also gets down to, because there is a human component to the yard and gate operations, part of the driver training is also ensure that the specific commodity that is being transported is not shared, right? We do not want drivers talking to the gate clerk saying, I have a load of smartphones in the back. That should be that should be kept strictly confidential.
Yeah, such good points. All right. So, Bobby, we have a dedicated SecurSpace episode for people to check out. That's episode 363 over on letstalksupplychain.com if you want to go and check it out. But for today, and for those who haven't heard that yet, can you tell us how SecurSpace can help with all of the issues we've kind of talked about today?
Yeah, absolutely. So because we're a two-sided marketplace, we have our buyer side and our supplier side. I'll start with the buy side. Every location that is listed within our network is fully vetted by team members. So we put that process in place to ensure that when a driver pulls into the yard, when a shipper, when a 3PL books space, that we know this facility really meets our requirements. And we certainly do use TAPA as the gold standard and the North Star as well. So when a shipper is in need of space, they can log on to SecurSpace, search for a market where space is needed, view all different locations, and they'll be able to select a location that meets their parameters, and then actually book space directly through the platform. And in most cases, drivers can start using the facility minutes later. All of their bookings can be managed directly through the portal. And we have a significant amount of reporting, both on the booking and then also inventory, able to visualize, what's in the yard and who brought it in, again, directly from the SecurSpace portal. Additionally, we have a best-in-class team of sales managers and key account managers who are more than willing to have a conversation with any of our current buyers or potential buyers who want to learn a little bit more about how we, take steps to mitigate cargo theft and really just provide assurances on the location that they're interested in booking at. Knowing our customer, really giving confidence to our customer that they'll have a great experience, their driver will be safe, and their cargo will remain secure. And on the supply side, really, it's the ability to showcase your location on SecurSpace's network of fully secure yards. Really want to emphasize just the secure nature of our network more holistically. Speak with our team of parking professionals about best practices and what next steps are to list your location. Once it's listed, you'll be able to accept booking requests from our buyer network, manage bookings directly from the tips of your fingers, and have access to comprehensive reporting, really allowing you to dig in and understand the performance of the parking and storage operation through SecurSpace.
So, Ron, for people wanting to know more about Overhaul, they can check out episode 246, and that feels a bit like a lifetime ago because it was way back in 2022. So, for those who haven't listened to that episode, can you remind us what role can Overhaul play in helping shippers overcome these challenges?
Yeah. So Overhaul, specializes in, cargo security with a heavy emphasis on cargo theft mitigation. Our technology platform, how we built it, how we deploy it, that was one of the primary value propositions when we launched Overhaul, nearly 8 years ago. We really focus on providing tailored solutions to unique supply chain operations. Whether you're moving a high value load of electronics or pharma or alcohol, tobacco, whether you're moving freight in North America, Europe, parts of Latin America, or other parts of the world, those security and risk mitigation programs do differ, based on the threats inherent to that region. And that's where we really shine is you're moving this cargo through this region. Here's your best-in-class security program. This is what we would do. Here's our recommendations. Here's how we can help if you choose to bring on a vendor, to provide a risk management service. We're a global operation with hundreds of years of experience in management team, mitigating theft around the world.
Great. And you're making an impact on the industry. So according to a recent report, cargo theft activity reached unprecedented levels in 2024, with an increase in cargo theft incidents as well as an increase in the average value per theft. Data indicates a strategic pivot by criminal enterprises and an evolving and increasingly sophisticated threat landscape. But working with partners like SecurSpace and Overhaul can help you manage risk, prevent theft, and improve your supply chain vulnerabilities to ensure your shipments stay safe and profitable. Did you have a guess at today's big question? Well, at the top of the show, I asked you, how much time does it take for thieves to steal a full truckload of cargo? Well, it's only 10 minutes. That's a really scary number. Only 10 minutes to lose tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's clear that making your cargo safe should be top priority for 2025. If you'd like to find out more, you can check them out at cargowise.com/landside and overhaul.com. over-haul.com. Massive thanks to Bobby and Ron for joining me today and to the team at CargoWise for making this episode happen. Thanks, guys.
Thank
you, Sarah. Thanks, Ron.